Hey girl, welcome to Pocketbook Conversations, a podcast dedicated to changing how Black women relate to money. I'm your host, Tiana King, and I'm the owner of the Rosea Jamise Firm, a financial coaching firm for high-earning Black women. Pocketbook Conversations centers on the lived experiences of Black women and the financial patterns shaped by survival, responsibility, and ambition. Pour up, settle in, and join the conversation. I do not think you understand how excited I am for this podcast to finally be in your ears, girl. It has been a long time coming. I also said I started this podcast a few years ago, but of course, like any other woman, any other person really, imposter syndrome definitely always creep in and paralyzes me sometimes, but I told myself we were not doing that anymore. So I am very uncomfortable, but I am forcing myself to do the things that I know are not going to hurt me. That has been my motto so far for this year. Everything that I have on my to-do list as far as my goals, they're not going to hurt me. So I have to retrain my brain to just get the things done, even though I am uncomfortable. But thank you for tuning in today. I want us to go ahead and jump right in. I want us to reflect back on our childhood. So what I'm going to be doing for today's episode is using myself as an example, not because I'm the blueprint, of course, but because I want to be honest and transparent with you so that you can be honest and transparent with yourself. So let's walk back through our childhood. And when I say childhood, I want you to think about your maternal and paternal figures and how their spending habits, their saving habits, and how they view money and how it affected you. So for me growing up, my parents got a divorce when I was either 6 or 7. My mama keeps telling me the age, girl, but I keep forgetting, okay? So my parents got a divorce. So that means that my parents had joint custody of us. So I got the opportunity to see how my mama spent money, how my daddy spent money, as well as my grandparents on both sides. So my mom's mom and then my mom and dad, not my mom, my dad, and my dad's parents, my grandma and my granddaddy. So starting out with my mom, hard worker. Actually, both of my parents are both hard workers. And I remember through childhood, my parents, as my parents will listen to this, I don't want y'all to get upset with me, baby, but I got to tell my truth, girl. Our parents always worked, and they always worked to provide a life for myself and my sister that I must say that we did not really get to see for real, because we didn't really get to experience it with our parents as much as we wanted to because they worked a lot. Okay. So what do I mean by that? My mom at times would work 2 jobs. I remember her working 2 jobs while she was in school getting her bachelor's degree. And she was the parent that didn't always say no. But if she did say no, we would ask our dad for things, and he was more likely going to say no too, because my dad was very frugal. Okay. But as I've gotten older, I've understood just asking questions, having conversations with my grandmother as well as my daddy, and learning more about his childhood and why he is so frugal. So my parents actually grew up as friends, and they grew up in the same neighborhood. My maternal grandmother had 3 children, and my paternal grandparents had 2. But like I said, they lived in the same neighborhood, but the finances were slightly different. So my mom, like I said, is the one who's not going to say no. But my dad, you know how kids do when they pitting their parents against each other. Well, mama said I couldn't do da, and then your daddy try to make it happen, or like vice versa. That's what we used to do. We definitely used to do it. It used to work sometimes, but not for real. So mom was the yes person. Dad was the I don't have it, I got to pay this, and different things like that. The grandparents, on the other hand, they were always going to more than likely say yes. But because we grew up on the west side of Montgomery, I knew I couldn't ask for super duper expensive things, which in a way molded me to view money differently because I saw what we had around us. Yes, my mom's grandmother, not her grandmother. Why do I keep saying that? My mom's mom, my grandma Rose, there was this grocery store called Calhoun Foods. It's across the street from the illustrious George Washington Carver Senior High School, which is where myself, my parents, my sister, my grandparents, well, majority of my family graduated from. Calhoun Foods is no longer there, but there used to be a shoe store that was next to it. I think it was called Shoe Time. I can't remember, but baby, Grandma Rose, she would take us there on the weekends, and baby, she would ball out on us. We would stay having shoes, but Grandma Rose also had several closets full of shoes, okay? So I saw where her money was going. I remember growing up and learning that my grandmother had applied for food stamps, but she was only getting like, I think like maybe like $30 or something like that. They consider her to make too much money. But I'm seeing her live off of retirement. Similar with my dad's parents. They weren't on food stamps, and Grandma Rose decided not to even be on a child because it wasn't giving her nothing. But my dad's parents, they were living off of retirement as well. My grandmother had retired from Courtyard Marriott, and my granddad had retired from the military. So whenever we were with them and we wanted stuff, prime example, coming back from church on Sundays or Bible study, we always passed by a McDonald's on Day Street. And I'm not gonna hold y'all. I know a lot of the times we were told that we did not have McDonald's money. Grandma and Granddaddy always seemed to find it. But back in the day, you know, McDonald's was really inexpensive. So, so when we asked for it, we got it. But like I said, I never asked for super duper expensive things. But one thing stands out to me. When I was in high school, I made the cheerleading team for Carver, which naturally, of course, I was going to do that. I've always been a cheerleader. I'm really small. I'm a flyer. Cheerleading is my jam. Okay. So I made the cheerleading team first round, and they told us how much it was going to cost. And it was like, I think like $900 something for like our like starter packet or whatever. And I immediately knew my mom was not going to have this money. I'm not even about to ask my daddy, and I'm not even about to ask my grandparents. So I told my mama. Of course, she said that she did not have the money. And that upset me to the point where I like jump started my, I don't want to say career, but since I can't find the right word, I went and got a job. Now, did I cheer? I did not. Because I was like, you know what? Whatever. At this point, I'm tired of being told no for certain things. Because as I got older, the word no was kind of used a little bit more from my mama. Like, for example, my senior prom, I paid for everything. My boyfriend at the time, he had a prom. And of course, he asked me to be his prom date. I paid for the stuff for that. Or I just went without it. Or my friends would help me do certain things, like do my hair or do my makeup or do my nails and stuff like that. Like, no, you know, became really just like the thing. I don't know what was going on, but actually I do, because I had a conversation with my mom and I found out that she was helping my grandmother as well as my grandparents, making sure that they had food in their house. So I was upset about that for a really long time. But as I was going through therapy to figure out how I ended up in debt, I started asking questions to my parents to fully understand like how my financial patterns were shaped. So like I said, I got a job as soon as I turned, it was either 15 or 16. I got my first job at Rainbow, and that was it for me, baby. I was literally full blown independent, making things happen. When I went off to undergrad, a lot of the things that were in my dorm room, I paid for myself because I did not want to be told no. And that molded me to never telling myself no and finding myself getting into credit card debt. If you do not follow me on social media, I've told my story several times, and I have ended up in credit card debt at 3 different times in my life. So when I was in undergrad, I was in credit card debt like maybe like 10 to 20,000. But at the time I was working at Wells Fargo. That was my like undergrad job. So I was working at Wells. I was also working for the university's marketing department, and I was also working for the university sports marketing department. And I had also had an off-campus job at a communications agency called Red Square in downtown Mobile, Alabama, because I graduated from the University of South Alabama for undergrad. Go Jags. So that was my like very first time being in debt. Got out of debt, got back into debt while I was in grad school, and then got out of debt and then got back into debt a little after grad school around like COVID, because I ended up losing my job. So I had to learn how I got into the situation of being in debt. And I realized that the different experiences that I had as a child were affecting how I viewed money. Being told no when I wanted to just do more than academic things in high school was a lot. Being told no when I'm getting ready for senior prom, I'm getting ready for graduation, I'm getting ready for my boyfriend's prom, that really molded my behavior. And then plus being told yes as a child, and then that no kind of, coming out of nowhere when I felt like this was like the most monumental time for me, it definitely changed how I view money, which also propelled me to, like I said, never telling myself no, and then ending up in debt. So my story resonated with a lot of my clients when my content went viral on TikTok, and I at the time had a BMW X3. I think it was a 2022. Yeah, 2022 BMW X3. I hated that vehicle and I wanted to trade it in. I went to Range Rover. There was a situation that ended up happening there that ended up going viral. Ended up leaving there, going to Porsche. Didn't want to get the Macan. I felt like it was too small. Ended up going over to Audi. The vehicle that I test drove, which was the Audi Q8, is the vehicle that I drove off the lot in, and I was able to roll in about $10,000 worth of negative equity. Those videos went viral, and when I say viral, I mean like millions of views viral. I have since removed them from my TikTok because I was planning on deleting my TikTok, but change your plans, girl. So now I am remaking all of those videos. But if you were around during that time, those videos are what propelled me. But I had been telling my story, and because of those videos and because of the ladies who booked their consultations with me, I have now been able to be pushed into my business full time. So I have clients that I work with on a monthly and weekly as well as a daily basis who have been in similar situations as me, as far as their childhood being molded in such a way to where they feel like they have to treat themselves with every single thing that comes across their lap. And that has pushed them into being in credit card debt. But I said all of those things about myself because I want you to understand that the credit card debt is not the cause, it's the effect. And in understanding that the credit card debt is now the effect, you have to figure out what the cause is for you. Know and understand that this journey of getting out of debt, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to stick. And to be honest, how long it takes really isn't the problem. It's your ability to stay out of debt and learning money management. So here's a little piece of homework for you. I want you to write down your earliest money memory. Like how I just went down memory lane as far as my relationship with my mom, my dad, and both sets of grandparents. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to think about your earliest money memory, and I want you to just ponder on it until our next episode, because we're going to build on this each week. All right. I want this podcast to be the place where you can come and really understand why you do the things that you do with your finances, so that you can face them and let them go. I do not want you to continue to suffer with your finances. I always tell my clients, you make way too much money to be doing certain things. But when you say things like that, you have to be able to understand where this thing is coming from, where this habit is coming from, where this effect came from, what was the cause, how do we get here? And once we learn that, what habits do we now need to adopt and, adding to our toolbox, as therapists always say. What tools do you now need in order for this to actually stick and for it to become a part of you, in order for you to become comfortable with it? So I have an exercise that I do with every new client, and it is a lifestyle calculator. And why we give this whenever someone books a consultation is for you to write down every single thing that is coming out of your bank account, from your income that comes in to your expenses that come out. A lot of the times when we are meeting with new clients during the consultation, the lifestyle calculator is not completed, which is perfectly fine, because I know that you're going to get overwhelmed. But that lets me know that there is some type of trauma that is associated with your money, because I understand that when you're spending money, you're just spending money. There is no true logic behind it outside of, I know I got to pay my bills. I need a roof over my head. I need to be able to eat. I need a car to drive. I have kids to feed, and I have a lifestyle that I want to live. But there also has to be a strategy behind all of those things, especially if you are dealing with debt. The debt is going to get paid off, but how did we get here? So that is your homework assignment for this week. I also want to challenge you to bring up, and this is if you are actively in therapy and if you've not already had this conversation, and even if you have, I think that it would still be good for you to bring it back up. I want you to have a conversation with your therapist around financial trauma and money trauma, because a lot of the times, and what I have found with my clients, is we pacify certain behaviors with spending money. We view spending money, we get a dopamine boost pretty much from spending money. It feels good to spend money. It feels good to, I give you the card or I tap and I get the thing, but that is a temporary feeling. So there's work that has to be done on that end, because debt is constantly building up. And that's just one part of it. It's deeper than the debt. I have a client who, whenever she's feeling overwhelmed, she goes and she spends money. But because of this, we have designated a certain amount of money that we call self-pay, that she is allowed to do whatever she wants to do with it. She calls it tricking off, child. So we have a certain amount of money that we designate in her monthly spending plan that she gets to trick off. And because of this, we're able to get her debt paid down and paid off, because we have paid off several credit cards as well as several loans. She is actually almost out of debt. Shout out to her. We've been able to build up her savings, and all of her bills are being paid on time and they are on auto pay. So all of her needs are being met by her debt payoff plan as well as her spending plan. But as she is healing through her financial trauma and the things that she's had to go through as she was growing into the woman that she is today, there is money that is there for her to do whatever she wants to do with it. And I would definitely say that as time has gone on, I don't know if she's peeped this, but I have peeped this. She is not spending as much of that self-pay because she's healing from the things that were once burdening her. So that has allowed her to say, maybe I don't want to spend that. Maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe let me find something else to do in order for me to cope and to self-soothe. So that's going to wrap up our episode for today. I am actually very excited that I was able to get all this off of my chest. I want to use this podcast as a vehicle for me to get topics off of my chest, because I know I'm not the only person that is thinking this way, but I also want y'all to use it. I want you to use it as a way for you to release emotions and for you to understand yourself more from a financial standpoint. So if you're interested in becoming a one-to-one client, a private client, that service is called Six Figure Abundance. Our consultations are free. All you have to do is find in the show notes, you're going to see the rjfirm.com/links, or it'll be the rjfirm.com/sixfigureabundance. You can go on there and book your free consultation. We're currently accepting 7 new clients before we open up our wait list. Right now, we are sitting at the most clients we have ever had at once, and I am very mind blown at what God is doing in my business. I started this business because God told me to. I graduated from undergrad. I did not have a job. I was very upset with myself when my friends were going off to law school, medical school, and all the other things, nursing school. And I was just like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? And he said, I want you to make budgets. And I was like, child, what? You want me to do what? So I started the business back in 2018, but I slept on the business until February of 2023. And that was when I started to take it serious, and it took off in April of 2023. That was when my Q8 purchase went viral. So we would love to have you as a client. We would love to do the work for you. Six Figure Abundance is a done for you service. So if you've been trying to get out of debt and you feel like, girl, I do not have time to be trying to figure this out, you've tried to figure it out and it has not worked out for you, this service is completely done for you. So if that's something that you are interested in, that consultation is available. If this episode brought something up for you, good. That is the work. Healing your relationship with money is not about perfection. It's about awareness, honesty, and taking the right next step. Keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you next Wednesday. This is Pocketbook Conversations.